Welcome to Pathway of Faith Ministries podcast. I'm your host, Dr. William Johnson. Pleased to be with you again on another Thursday afternoon. We're continuing with our theme, From Creation to Restoration. This is part 2. And so we'll continue then with Creation to Restoration. I'll give you a little review. Just a brief review. Chapter 3 is where we ended up. We talked about verses 16 and 17, where God commanded Adam and Eve concerning the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that are in the garden. And they could eat freely from the tree of life. If they became injured or sick, all they had to do was eat from the tree of life and they would be restored. And I can't imagine them getting sick in the Garden of Eden, but in the event. And then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they should not eat of it. And God said, the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. And so they ate of it. And the next day, when God came into the garden, they were hiding in the trees. And so God hollered, "Where are you, Adam?" And finally he replied, "We're here." And he said, why are you hiding? And he said, "Well, because we're naked." And God told him, "Who told you you were naked?" And so they revealed the whole story of how they disobeyed God. Then we talked a little bit about disobeying God. God put them in the garden. He gave them a choice. They had the choice for the eating of the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If they could eat all they wanted off the one tree, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, to eat off it, they were choosing to disobey God. They were, and in essence, they were choosing evil instead of righteousness. And so when they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the penalty of that was death. And we covered that the death we were talking about, since they were in the garden when God came in the next day, it's obvious there couldn't be that they were going to be killed. The penalty of death is separation from God, and being separated from God is same as death to a Christian. Now we represented whether they would choose righteousness or worldliness. And so we went on to verse 1 and we completed chapter 3. So today we start with chapter 4 and we will go through the rest of this assignment. Now, chapter 4, 1 through 4, is the birth of Adam's and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. Abel was a keeper of the sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Both made offerings to God. Abel's offering was accepted, and Cain's offering was not. Now, you say, well, why not? Why wasn't Cain's offering acceptable? Well, the types of offerings that are offered to God Cain's offering would have been, it was for them to keep. The Jewish people would keep that offering. It was for themselves. But the offering for God involved blood and the flesh of a newborn goat or sheep or lamb, something of that nature. And it had to be in top shape. It had to be the first thing of the litter. So Cain's, he could have went over to Abel and said, Abel, loan me a sheep or a goat for an offering to the Lord. And Abel would have been happy to give it to him. But he didn't do that. He was puffed up and wanted to do it his way. So he chose the righteous way, in his own sight, righteous. And he didn't do what God said do. And so the wrath of God was upon him. Now, I should have mentioned to you that there on my right, and I expect your left, there's a chat box. And if something's not clear, or if you want to ask a question, or any remark you want to make, you can put it there and I'll try to respond to it. And I see somebody already saying hello, hello. And so Adam had the two children, and Cain and Abel's offering was accepted because it was an appropriate offering to be offered to God. Cain's offering was an offering that they should keep. And he evidently knew that. One thing we know about God, he's not going to hold you responsible for something you don't know or you don't have any way of knowing. So he knew. And he should have just went and borrowed or purchased animal from Abel and made his offering, and everything would have been great. Okay, and then chapter 5 gives us the genealogy of Adam's family. We won't go through the genealogy of Adam's family because you can read that for yourself in chapter 5 of Genesis. And you will need to know that as you go into your Bible studies further. Now, chapter 6, the wickedness and judgment of man is contained in chapter 6. This chapter spells out the atrocities of man leading up to God's decision to utterly destroy the earth. That's chapter 6. The reasons spelled out in this chapter are too far advanced for the level of this presentation. However, I feel at least a comment on the verse that reads, the sons of God. There are many opinions regarding the identity of these sons of God, including those of prominent early Christian founders like Augustine, St. Augustine, Luther, and just to name a few. One view that I favor sees the sons of God as the descendants of Seth. Now, after Cain killed Abel, they had another son. His name was Seth. And so Eve said, God has given her another son to replace excuse me, to replace Abel. And support Seth was a son given to replace Abel. So I favor this one. The sons of God are descendants from Seth. In this interpretation, Seth's godly descendants were intoxicated by the beauty of the women descended from Cain, thus burying those who'd rejected God. You get it? Should I say it again? Okay, you got it then. I should account for the giants in the land also. There were many giants in the land. Some have the impression that these giants resulted from the marriages of the sons of God with the people of the earth. Well, I should point out to you that the giants of the land, there were giants in the land before the sons of God took women in marriage in Genesis 6:4. And I could just read that to you. Let me just scoot back here a little bit. Okay. And now it says here, now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, and this time she brought forth Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So we already discussed that. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And I think I should have went straight to verse 6. And I got off track there a little bit. Okay. But he did not respect the say. So the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your countenance fell? If you do well, your offering will be accepted. Well, let me just see here. I think um, well, we'll find that just in a little bit. But we'll go on. Uh, okay, somebody says, say it again about Seth. Seth. That's Seth. Uh, now, now, after after Cain had been killed, um, after Abel had been killed, um, they had another son, and his name was Seth. Now, the reason spelled out in this chapter are too far advanced for you. That's what I told you. So one view that I favor sees the Son of God as descendants of Seth. And this interpretation, Seth's godly descendants were intoxicated by the beauty of women descended from Cain, thus marry those who rejected God. So Cain was under the wrath of God. And now Eve mentioned that God had given her this son, Seth, to replace Abel. He was a son of God. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. Now, I said I would account for the giants in the land. And actually, that was in Genesis 6:4. So let me get it right this time. Genesis 6:4. Okay. It says, and the Lord said, my spirit will not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. So they weren't mighty men and giants from the union of those sons of God and Cain's women. They were there all the time. And so I hope that clears it up a little bit. And as I said, there's been some prominent early Christians. I named them off: Augustine, Luther, and some others. And I don't think there has ever been an overall agreement on um, on these verses, but um, I like the one I just told you the best. So we accounted for the giants in the land, and the the four essential elements of chapter 6 is that God decided to destroy the world. Noah was commissioned to build an ark according to God's instructions. Noah, his wife, and his three sons, and his three sons' wives went into the ark. And then there was an array of clean animals and animals that were not considered clean. Uh, that goes to the uh, diet of the Jewish nation and what they considered clean and what they didn't consider clean. And there was a way you could tell the difference between each. And there again, we won't go into that this evening. Noah was delivered in chapter 8 from the flood. He was in the ark, and the flood was delivered with with Noah in it. And it says they landed safely, and the Lord vowed to never destroy the earth by flood again. So he, right there, and the Lord, I'll read that to you. I hope I have better success reading that to you than I did that other verse. And the Lord pretty much He restored man to a position of dominance over the earth. So it says here, so I'll just read to you. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord. This is after he landed in the ark, and took of every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And there again, this is a burnt offering, and it has to do with life. He offered every clean bird and every clean um, animal. So these are burnt offerings. Now, the offering that Adam and Eve were involved in were supposed to be burnt offerings. In order to have a burnt offering, you have to have an animal or a bird, and Cain didn't do that. And I have every reason to believe that Cain knew it, because if he didn't know it, God wouldn't have held it against him. So he was just being obstinate. And the Lord smelled a sweet aroma from what Noah was cooking there. And then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake. Oh, the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Do you hear that? Man's heart is evil from his youth. Nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. Now listen to hear what Lord promises. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. So he says there's going to be seasons. I'm restoring the seasons. You recall that Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, and they had to eat off the land, whatever they could find. They were what you would call foragers. And so they were eating off the ground. And the land also was cursed and still is cursed. But the Lord has permitted the seasons. And so you have thunder and lightning, you have storms, you have earthquakes. The earth is still under the curse. Okay, now that's as far as we said we'd go. But I've had some requests. Okay, I'm seeing here if anybody had something to say. I guess we're satisfied with Seth. So I'll read some of chapter 9, even though we're not supposed to, but I think it'd be interesting. Okay? Okay. I'm going to take that as an okay. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and on the flesh, on the fish of the sea. They are given unto your hand. So he pretty much restored what Adam had lost. He restored it again. And he says, and fear of you and dread of you. And that means mankind. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Surely for your livelihood I will demand a reckoning. Now, he says, I read that again. Surely for your life blood I will demand a reckoning from the hand of every beast. I will require it. Now, he says, we said before that, that this life is in the blood. And he says, surely for your life blood, I will demand a reckoning from the hand of every beast. I will require it, and from the hand of every man. From the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Verse 6, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man, and as for you, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it. So that is that's pretty heavy stuff, I'd say, wouldn't you? So we have to remember that man is evil from his birth, and he has misused that also because he's very selective in whom he demands um, their blood for the blood of another. So uh, I just add that on. That last bit was my opinion. So I didn't see that in the Bible. The Bible just says carte blanche. A man's blood will be required of the man that took it by the hand of the brethren. So I'm looking at the comments here. Somebody said, yes, for sure, this is corporate punishment, right? Yes, it is corporate punishment. Somebody said, wow. So that is powerful stuff. And it's the word of God, not mine. And so in all these readings, we use the word of God. And if I feel like I should say what my feeling is, then I will make sure you know that it didn't come out of the word of God. It came from, a servant of God. So I feel like justified in making a statement now and again. And so that's our program for this evening. I might say that we have a podcast, Pathway of Faith Ministries.org, and you can go there, and all these presentations that we make, at least most of them, are on the podcast, and you can view them free of charge. And while you're there, if you feel that these programs are useful and you would like to see them continue, feel free to leave an offering. You can do it by, actually, that's a donation. You can leave it by, you can mail it, or you can do it through I forget the name of uh, the uh, the company we use. You probably know. It's there on the podcast, and we'd appreciate it. That's the bottom line. And so, God bless you. Um, Easter's coming up. Uh, be great if you went to church. Praise the Lord and help praise the Jesus Christ rose on Easter morning. We celebrate that on Easter, and in his rising, he defeated sin and death, giving rise to the saying, "O death, where is your victory? O grave, well, could be vice versa. O grave, where is your victory? And death, where is your?" We got it. PayPal was what I was looking for. Somebody help me out. So let me see if I can get that straight. It says, "O grave, where is your victory? O death, don't have it tonight." At any rate, God bless you. Make sure you go to church Sunday. Love you to death. Bye bye.